All right, let's welcome in our guest, Jake Crane, host of national sports show Crane and Company that streams live Monday through Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern. Guys, if you're not watching Crane and Company every day, or at least listening to the podcast, you guys are missing out. These guys are absolute ball knowers and just love talking ball like we do here. Jake, it's an honor to have you on our show today. Thank you very much for giving us some time, man.
Oh, well, of course, man. I really like what y'all got going on too. It's funny. I have a lot of people that always ask me, "Do you listen to like other sports shows?" And for the most part, I really don't. But y'all's are one of the few that I've kind of ran into that I can listen to and enjoy. So y'all keep doing what y'all are doing. Obviously, I see the growth, and congrats to y'all on that. But no, man, I'm I love it like everybody else loves it. I was very fortunate enough to, grow up in a house with a father that played in the SEC and coached college football for a while. And, I coached for almost a decade, about, 8 years in Division I, and then started doing this when COVID hit. And I still think I'm in a coma. I think I was recruiting somewhere and some semi hit me when I was recruiting up in Montana. But no, it's been incredible. I can't believe they pay us to do this. So it's a good gig for sure.
No doubt, man. Well, Jake, again, appreciate you joining us, bro. And I'm obviously a
course.
big fan of your show as well. And I agree with Tyler. You guys are definite ball knowers. This is why we have you on the show here today. So let's jump in.
Well, Lance, I always say I only know 4 things, and they all start with F. So football just happens to be one of them.
Yeah, I'll leave it up to the imagination to get those other Fs in there. Yeah, man, we're going to talk a little college football playoff action with you, of course. This 12-team playoff is obviously what's dominating all the headlines, unless it's coaching carousel or transfer portal right now. But we want to talk about some action on the field.
Yeah, Jake, let's talk about that in-state matchup. Indiana traveling up to South Bend to face the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. In this matchup, we know Notre Dame wants to run the ball, right? Indiana hasn't really faced a three-headed attack, like, Jadarian Price, Jeremiah Love, Riley Leonard, especially. The quarterback they've faced who has the most rushing yards in the season is Aiden Childs of Michigan State. So the big question is, can Indiana's defense hold up against what Notre Dame wants to do on offense?
Yeah, well, if there's one thing Indiana's been really good at this year, it's stopping the run. I think they're second in the country in yards per rush given up, somewhere around there. Heck, if you're even close to that realm, it's very impressive. But on that same hand, I think multiple things can be true at once. They haven't faced a team with the versatility in the run game and the capability in the pass game that Notre Dame has, and this Notre Dame team is built different than the ones that we've seen in the past. Typically they've been, big and kind of, clunky. Maybe you got one guy that's got some witch in him on the outside that you can send deep. But this Notre Dame team, not that they're small up front, I actually think the offensive line, when you look at all the injuries that have happened there at certain places, even in the preseason, they've done a pretty good job. But Riley Leonard as a runner, again, I'll go back to what I said earlier when you asked me the quarterback question. Some guys run like quarterbacks and some guys run like running backs, but they play quarterback. To me, Riley Leonard could actually play running back and be a decent player. He reminds me kind of a little bit when Brock Bowers would get the ball in space. He's a heavy-shouldered guy. He can change direction pretty decently, but he has good feel. And that's a thing that, again, it's God-given as a runner. He's not a straight line guy that's just fast, right? Just a track guy that's fast once he gets going. So I think his ability, not only from a physicality standpoint and athletic standpoint, but from a mental standpoint on knowing when to give the ball, knowing when to keep the ball, knowing when to take off, that is dangerous in itself. Now, if you're Indiana, the question to me becomes, yeah, they may have some more speed on the outside, but at what point do I just load the box and say, that's fine if you're going to beat me? Riley Leonard's got to beat me with his arms. Now, they're not going to do that early because you don't do that early because you want to test to see if you play them even, can you stop them? Because why would I go all in on the first hand when I don't know how the table's playing? The minute you realize you can't do that, you're probably going to start stunning. You're probably going to start bringing different type of pressures, having guys cross stick, things like that, to see if you can, the blitzing of the run game on defense, as I say. And then if that doesn't work and you got to mix a little bit of everything, I don't want to speak in absolutes, then you've got to start loading the box and just turning it into a math game and saying, if you're going to beat me, that's fine. Riley Leonard beat me over the top because we're just going to throw a math problem at you.
Yeah. On the other side of the ball, biggest question to me is, can Indiana's offensive line protect Curtis Rourke? Because we all saw, you mentioned earlier, the Ohio State game. Yeah, while they gave them 2 special teams touchdowns, the offensive line looked overmatched once Jim Knowles started bringing a lot of pressure.
Mhm.
He had Curtis Rourke seeing ghost out there. I do think that depending on the weather, Indiana's offense has a chance to have success through the air against Notre Dame. I mean, with Notre Dame injuries on the back end, most notably Benjamin Morrison, the fact that Al Golden just plays a ton of man-to-man, I think these wide receivers for Indiana have a chance to get open over the middle of the field. If they can give Rourke enough time, you got to think, though, that Notre Dame's looking at that Ohio State defensive game plan.
Yeah, well, I think there's actually, and I don't hear enough people talk about this. I think Ewers and Rourke are very similar. Like when you watch the way they play, I think Quinn's arm's a little bit bigger than Rourke's, but from stylistically, they have a decent amount in common, right? Like they can wiggle out sometimes, but that's not their game. The reason that Indiana is a routine on schedule team. I said that earlier in the week, they wake up, they're the routine person. They're like I am. They're going to wake up at the same time every day. They're going to go through the same routine. They're going to go brush their teeth. They're going to get in the shower. They're going to check their emails. They're going to get the coffee going, take the dogs out. And if one thing goes wrong in that, it can screw up the whole day. I'm out of toothpaste. Oh, God, what are we going to do, right? I forgot to get coffee from Kroger. That when they get off schedule, they are not and get in predictable passing downs, which is what happened against Ohio State. You go back and watch early, they were pretty on schedule because they were balanced and the best camouflage to protect a quarterback in pass protection and to help the offensive line is a good run game, and it's balanced offensively so guys can't pin their ears back. It's also getting in versatile downs, right? 3rd and 4s and below. I can't pin my ears back at defensive end on 3rd and 2. I can on 3rd and 12. And Ohio State got off schedule. They got down 2 touchdowns because they dropped a punt. The punter dropped the snap and basically gave Ohio State a touchdown. Then, after a 3 and out, they returned a punt for a touchdown. Now we're in the second half, and Indiana's got to become more one-dimensional, and that's why he was a sitting duck. So if Indiana stays on schedule, they can win this game. If Indiana stays on schedule, they could possibly beat Ohio State. But that's the danger with Indiana. A lot of things have to go right, and they cannot afford any self-inflicted wounds. And it's going to be the same thing in this game, and you will see that if they're balanced and they're in non-predictable downs, versatile downs, they will have success and they will keep that offense off the field. So a lot of it is staying on schedule with this team, and it's a luxury when you can do either, but they don't have that luxury, which has made it all the more impressive they've won this many games.
Yeah. Looking from the Notre Dame side, kind of at a whole, Brian Kelly was 22-27 against ranked opponents in Notre Dame. Marcus Freeman is 11-4. He seems to be kind of a big game coach. Obviously, he has trouble with the Marshalls and the Northern Illinois of the world at home. And Indiana's top 10 team, not necessarily a big name brand per se. If this game's tight in the first half, do we see Notre Dame start feeling a little more pressure just knowing how some of those games in the past couple of years have gone?
Yeah, well, I mean, this one, I just can't believe the state of Indiana is the state that's hosting a playoff game with 2 teams from it. I wonder what the odds would have been on the sportsbook on that one before the season. I think it's a different type of pressure. There's going to be game pressure regardless, just because it's an elimination game. We even see this with 16 seeds playing 1 seeds in the college basketball tournament, right? Like you get halfway through the first half and they're only up 4. Everybody starts tuning in. Like, is Arkansas Pine Bluff going to do this? So there's going to be that game pressure, but this is different because Notre Dame's supposed to be the team in the state of Indiana. Now, when it comes to college football, not Purdue even, not Indiana, not Ball State. It's supposed to be Notre Dame. So, we've seen, Auburn and Alabama be in-state and both be good, right? We've seen this before. We just saw Texas and Texas A&M play a consequential game. But this is just weird because if you're a Notre Dame, it's a lot of pressure on Notre Dame. Because Indiana, you're playing with house money. Nobody thought Indiana was going to be here. And you get a chance to go play Notre Dame in their house. And Cignetti's confident. He's unbelievably – he was upset with where they were seated. And people couldn't believe that. They're like, oh, you should just be thankful to be in. No, he's changing the culture there. And to change the culture, you got to keep that swag. You got to keep that we are the big dog. So I just think there's naturally a lot of pressure because technically, no offense to Indiana, I don't even know if this is little brother. This is like the little cousin, and y'all are playing in the big one. Like it's I think there's a lot of pressure on Notre Dame, and if you're Indiana, the longer you hang around in this one, because the chip on the shoulder is going to be easy for Cignetti. You're going on the road. Look at Notre Dame. I'd be showing them. We'd watch Rudy every night if I was Cignetti. We'd watch it every night. I'd just be subliminally hitting them with it.
Yeah, I'm with you, man. And they haven't played since 1991. Interestingly enough, that the first time they played in 1991, that was the first NBC game for Notre Dame. So this game's not going to be on NBC for the first time as a Notre Dame home game in 33 years. So I'm with you, though, man. I live here in Indiana, so sometimes Notre Dame is not even considered to be in the state. They're just kind of up north. And yeah, like you said, I mean, it's just they don't even really ever think about Indiana.
So is there any hate there? Is there like any just good old fashioned hate, or is it just like, hey man, you surprised us at the party. I can't believe you flew all the way here.
No, what you find here is you find a lot of Notre Dame football and Indiana basketball fans. Very mixed.
See,
yeah.
that would never happen in Alabama. You would never find I'm an Auburn basketball fan, but an Alabama football fan. Yeah, we send those people to Guantanamo. No offense, but
and I think it's just because Notre Dame. I mean, they were recruiting nationally long before any other school was recruiting nationally. They got a wide fan base. But yeah, I mean, they think a lot more about Purdue, Michigan, kind of the schools that are closer to them than that little school down in Bloomington.
This is awesome. It's awesome.
Yeah. Jake, once again, man, can't thank you enough for coming on. Let the people know one more time where they can find you and your show.
Yeah, well, look, whether it's YouTube, Roku, Apple Podcast, Spotify, I'm not smart enough to remember every platform that it's on. Just YouTube's the easiest. Crain & Company, CRAIN and Company on Daily Wire Plus too. But we don't really get political. I mean, unless you don't like Ward Manuel and his answers, then I think you'll fit right in. But I think that's most of us. But yeah, come check us out live 2 to 3:30 p.m. Central each weekday. Just had Rhett Lashley on. Got another coach coming on next week. We're really excited about. So yeah, come hang out with us.
Awesome, man. This was a blast. Can't wait to do it again soon.
Hey, y'all keep doing what y'all doing, man. It's really good stuff. And anytime you need me, just hit me up.
Appreciate it, Jake.
All right, man. Y'all be good.
All right, man.
Indiana at Notre Dame. Notre Dame 7.5-point favorites. Total of 51.5. Yeah, we talked about this game with Jake. It's just it's going to be an interesting, fascinating game. Again, 11 degrees, real field temperature up in South Bend on Friday night. That's nothing that Indiana's not used to, being in the same state and being 3.5 hours away from South Bend.
I mean, yeah,
so there's not really an advantage there.
Yeah, it was basically piss and snow in the bucket game. So
yeah. So I mean, and now where it would be an advantage is if it does get a little windy, like we said with Curtis Rourke, them liking to throw the ball, being an on-schedule team. If it gets a little windy, that'll get a little tricky for them because I don't think they're going to have a lot of success on the ground. Howard Cross will be back for this game for Notre Dame. On the offensive side of the ball, Jeremiah Love is playing for Notre Dame. So all is good there. I think the three-headed attack, like I mentioned, with Jadarian Price, Jeremiah Love, and Riley Leonard with Notre Dame, I think they're going to pose problems to Indiana's defense. We're talking about two teams here who are first and third in average scoring margin this season. So they've taken care of business, albeit against lesser schedules, but they've taken care of business in very impressive fashion against the teams they've played.
And two of the best rush defenses in college football.
Yep, Indiana's the number one rush defense in college football. Rushing yards per game, they give up about 70. I would be shocked if Notre Dame didn't have 70 by the end of the first quarter, to be honest with you.
Okay, calling your shot. I see you.
Listen, out of a script, just Mike Denbrock's script at the beginning of a game, his first drive, every time I turn on a Notre Dame game, if I turn it on time or if I turn it on a couple minutes late, they get the ball and they just drive straight down. Like the first drive has been no issue for them. They drive straight down. They design some runs for Riley Leonard. He probably gets 2, 3, 4 carries on the first drive, and they usually punch it in for a touchdown. So I just think I think they're going to come out. Notre Dame's going to come out a lot better than I think than Ohio State did when they played Indiana at home.
Yeah, I definitely think that Indiana has the number one, like you said, Indiana's got the number one rush defense in college football, but they have not faced a rushing attack like they're going to face here with Notre Dame with Riley Leonard and those two tailbacks. Again, having to account for the quarterback who might be just as good as anybody on the field at running the football in general. We heard Jake talk about like how he just runs heavy with his pads, and he's a tough, like inside runner. Like he can, take off and leave you a little bit too, but he's not like your Lamar Jackson or something like that type.
Yeah.
He's exactly what this Notre Dame team has built this team off of this year, which I'm going to say it again, which is violent. That's what this Notre Dame team wants to be. They want to line up and test your will. So Indiana, with the number one rush defense in the country, it's going to be strength versus strength. I don't see Notre Dame coming out here and all of a sudden lining up in 5 wide and we're just going to sling it all over the field. No. They're going to line up and they're going to do what they do and see if you can stop it. I actually do, though, think that Indiana can hold up a little bit against the run. I don't think that Notre Dame just going to run all over them, but I do think they're going to have a lot more success in the run game than other teams have had against Indiana this year.
Yeah.
And I'm with you, man, as far as the weather and Curtis Rourke throwing the football and Indiana throwing the football in this weather. They definitely want to rely on the passing game a little bit more as well. But again, Indiana's got some solid backs too. They've got 2 or 3 solid backs that can run at you. But again, Rourke is more of your statue type quarterback that is you know where he's going to be in the pocket when he goes back to throw. Like he's a standing target that you can go send pressure after to go get. I just don't know if, again, like you talked about after the USC game, it looks like that Notre Dame's defensive weakness with no Benjamin Morrison and stuff, if there is one, I don't know about a weakness, but if it's somewhere where you can really attack them, is attack them in their secondary, in the passing game down the field. Well, if the weather is going to have a big impact on that, then that's going to take away what Indiana really wants to do on offense. So my pick in this game is I'm taking Notre Dame to win. I don't know as far as the line is concerned, so I'm not going to give out a best bet like I did with Tennessee at plus 7.5. I don't have a best bet on the line. Again, I do think it's going to be a little lower scoring. I do have a best bet in this game on a total, which means they'll probably score 1 billion because I've been awful on totals this year. But I'm going to take under. There's some 51.5s, and I've even seen a couple of 52s. I'm taking under 52 in this game. I think the weather, I think the way that Notre Dame plays on defense, I think that Indiana being able to hold up a little bit against the run. I do think both teams are going to be running the football a lot in this game and try to lean on their defenses. So I'm going to take under 52, and I think Notre Dame finds a way to win this game. But I don't have a score prediction like I did in the other one.
I do think if you think that the weather, obviously with it being cold, I mean, you can be acclimated as much as you can, but still, until you start hitting other teams in that cold of weather and you know how that feels, it might take you a little bit to get used to it. So, playing like a first quarter under, under the point total, maybe it's 6.5, 7.5, kind of hoping for a 7-0 first quarter or something like that. That might be the way to go, but yeah, I'm with you, man. I think, like Jake said, I mean, Indiana wants to be a routine, on-schedule team. Mm-hmm. And if Notre Dame puts pressure on them early, like Ohio State did with Rourke, and like I said, he was seeing ghosts out there with Jim Knowles' defense, I think Notre Dame's front seven could do the same type of thing. And IU's going to have to try to keep it balanced with the running game, too, with Lawton and Ellison. And I think Rourke can have success through the air. I think he can. We saw what Jaden Mayava did. So they just play so much man-to-man that those guys are out on islands and they're susceptible to some of those back shoulder fades. So I do think Notre Dame, I think their talent is just too much here. None of these are best bets. These are picks for fun, really, for me right now. I'm taking the Irish 31-13. In a pretty handily victory here in South Bend at Notre Dame Stadium on Friday night. So,
are you going?
There is potential for me to go to this game. So, I haven't heard yet. Hope to hear soon. But we will see, and we'll. I gotta start bundling up, collecting the hand warmers, the foot warmers, the body warmers, all that.
Yeah,
stuff.
man. ATB with boots on the ground for a big one. We were at the Big Ten championship game together here recently, and now you might. Me growing up in the South, I just don't know if I'm made for a game in December in old South Bend at the Golden Dome. But yeah, good stuff, man.